Daisy, I have a question for you. Because we are both, well, I'm a progressive Jew. I'm clearly not an Orthodox Jew. And is it fair for me to say that you're a progressive Muslim? Is
Yeah,
that,
I would call myself liberal, open-minded, progressive, forward-looking,
right.
all the nice
Neither
things.
one of us cover our hair, in case you didn't notice, right? So I'm wondering, from your perspective, like how do you feel about what she's doing, right? That path that she's taking, and the, you know, and the kind of fundamentalist nature of her journey.
Well, because I went through my own journey and I realized what a black hole I had inside of me when I was not connected to God, because I come from a family that's steeped in religiosity, and then for all the reasons, like the Iranian Revolution unfolding in front of my eyes. I was a young, impressionable girl living in Jericho, Long Island. There were no Muslims anywhere.
Yeah, not Jericho, Jericho.
Yeah, Jericho, Long Island. Well, it's practically Jewish. It was 90%, 99% Jewish. And, having to be the only one and surrounded by our larger culture. So, and then having to struggle to find God again. And I'll tell you the story. I was so angry with my religion. I was so angry with what was happening in the name of my religion. I had to make a choice. Either I reject it outright and become American, or I embrace it. And embracing was too tough for me, too difficult, because it would have been a very lonely journey. So I went to, and I picked up all these bits and pieces from my intellectual friends, like religion is a crutch for the masses, and opium for the crutch for the weak, opium of the masses. All religion is institutionalized religion is all bad. All these buzzwords that I was learning, and I went and declared to my mom in Kashmir after living in the United States for 8 years. I said, I don't believe in religion. And my mom is a very devout woman. And I could see the pain in her eyes. And then I said, it's all nonsense. God is all, this is the greatest sin in Islam is the rejection of God. So I was doing something that, is like almost blasphemous. But who are you going to tell your greatest blasphemous secret to other than your mother, right? It's like the comfort place. And so she just looked at me and she said, I know you've forgotten God, but I know He hasn't forgotten you. And I will pray for the day when He finds you. And because she left the choice up to me, this gave me this freedom to sort of explore on my own. I began in my own mind. I said, before he finds me, I better go find him. So I came back to Manhattan, and this is where my journey began. I was looking for God in all the places. You know how they say looking for God, love in all the wrong places? I was going to all the mosques and seeing angry people. I would run away from this. So when I see another person either embracing this thing, I welcome them, because the ultimate goal is to find your connection with God, is to find that space, that spiritual space, which can nourish you as a human being. So I am very supportive of people who decide to leave or embrace another this thing. I think we should all do that, because what is the other side? The other side is rejection of everything. And this also happens in interfaith marriages when people come and they really want to have a sacred, they want to have all the sacred rituals around their marriages. And I don't fight over it. I said, okay, we got the Jewish thing. You do the full Jewish thing. You break the glass, you get the ketubah here, you do this. And you Muslims, we're going to do everything. We're going to honor both. So I think if we can find a place where we can honor both, like find that right sort of mix where we actually honor both by honoring God, that would be a good place to be, rather than competing. Because God doesn't compete with himself. If he had competed with himself, he wouldn't have created all of us in the same way. We would all look a little different. We would have somebody would maybe would have 3 ears or something different. So that's my.
We're going to take one question over here.
One thing that struck me about the film was the interweaving of culture and religion, and I wonder if you could both comment on that briefly, because it's difficult to separate them, and yet in this particular young woman's journey, her attempt at that led, I think, to some of that extreme loneliness she was feeling. And how do you, just be interested in your comments on that, of, how do you separate, if you can, culture and religion? Which came first, chicken or egg?
It didn't strike me that she felt comfortable in Jewish culture. And it didn't seem that there was much Jewish culture in her life. There seemed to be, in her mother's case, a deep religiosity. It was sort of a kind of superstitious religiosity, but and with her father, he was actually a really complicated guy for me because nothing seemed to bother him at all. I've never met anybody like this. Really, everything was kind of okay with him except Arabs. And yet, he now had an Arab son-in-law, and that was sort of okay with him too. So he voted for Kahana, and he's also like okay with an Arab son. Like, I don't know. I want what he's smoking, I think. But it was very hard to kind of understand his. But I didn't see an interesting Jewish culture. I didn't even really see an interesting Israeli culture there. I mean, I think she was. I agree with Daisy here. I think she was a very lonely person, and she was looking for something that to sustain her life and give it meaning.
Yeah, I also picked up one thing from that. I think it's one point she mentioned that there are all these things that Muslims do, because we really follow our rituals. I mean, I think the Jewish people also do. I think you follow your law very seriously. And, Muslims do their Ramadan, they do their prayers. We are fairly disciplined people if we are devout. If we're not devout, then we don't do anything at all. But I think that she was attracted to that as well because it gave her discipline. It gave her a spiritual journey meaning because now it was structured. And many converts tell us that's what they love about Islam. In fact, when the first batch of African Americans became Muslim in this country with Elijah Muhammad, many of them were drug addicts and people who were really troubled. And they would put them through this sort of school, this sort of finishing and cleansing school where they would make them wear nice suits with bow ties, tell them they got to pray 5 times a day, you got to do your Ramadan, you got to do this, basically clean them up. And that was the first batch of Muslims that were the followers of this thing. Then eventually they left and became Orthodox Muslims, but that sort of people who don't have structure and attracted to structure find Islam very appealing, even in this country.